Hey, we are live. We are 10 minutes late, probably as late as we've ever been, but we are finally here. And welcome everybody to another... Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another live Wine and Comics pairing show. As always, I am Dave, and over to my, I guess, left, right? Whatever you call it. Left. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are
I'm
you
Dallas, as usual.
He's Dallas. And today we have two very special guest stars, two people who are at least new to my POV. So Julius Freeman and Anthony Gambino, two creators of the graphic novel Vigilant Fury, which we are going to talk about today, currently on Indiegogo. And this is, you guys, this is your third campaign's second comic, correct?
Julius.
Yes,
it's my second. It's my second. It's Gambino's third because he launched a art book first.
Ah, okay.
And then
Oh
no, it's your second, right, Anthony? Yeah, I lost count.
He's like,
what's a career? What's a career? Who knows?
It's my third. The first one I launched failed, so I had to repackage it and re-strategize.
Come on,
and I launched the.
Come on, we don't call it failing around here.
What would you call it? What would you call it, Dallas?
We call it failing. Go on.
I was hoping for a better word. Let's just say it didn't make it to the finish line.
There you go.
And then I relaunched it. It did okay, and then I had this idea for the story which ended up becoming Vigilant Fury. Found Anthony, and then we launched it. Funded, thankfully, barely funded, but we made it. And now we're doing the second chance campaign for the opportunity.
Anthony seems to take issue with that phrasing.
Wait, yeah, we did all right. I think our goal was what, 3,000, and we got like 3,800.
Hey.
Was that the final number? I'm sorry. I just remember like the last few weeks we were like, I don't think we're gonna make it, man.
I'll tell you exactly what Julius is thinking of. I'm pretty sure we said this on other shows, so I don't think it's too much of a surprise. But I'm talking days before the end of the first campaign. Julius and I got on a call and we're like, okay, this didn't work. What are we gonna do next? Maybe we'll put Vigilant Fury aside for a little bit. We'll work on some smaller stories to get some notoriety and get our names out there more, and try to do, like I said, smaller stuff to just keep hitting people with us so that they, we build a relationship. And dude, within I'm not even kidding, the last day or two, we got over $1,000.
Yeah. We went on 2 live streams. One of them was Bancroft. Wow. And then the other one was 80s Made, a channel called 80s Made. Yeah. And we funded, they came through, their viewers came through, and they funded the book, and they helped us get over the line. It was kind of a Hail Mary of sorts.
I don't think it's going to happen on this one, but hey, we will do our best.
You never know.
Those are big shoes to fill.
Only like $160 away from this goal because we kept it small, so.
We kept it low.
When you do make the goal, you will credit us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have I have no doubt you're going to make this goal. At the very least, the goal. I think you should make a lot more than.
As a matter of fact, hold on one sec.
Okay.
It was really cool. It was nerve wracking, but we funded on we got our goal on my 30th birthday, which was
huge. Man, come on.
That's crazy. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It was awesome.
That is awesome.
It was awesome.
That's fantastic. So okay, the both of you, let's start. Let's start with you, Julius, and then we'll go over to Anthony. But because you guys are new to us, tell us your little bit of you can keep it as short and sweet as you want, especially for viewers who have seen this before, for any of you. But your creative story, what got you to become Julius? How long have you been a writer? Here? What made you want to be a writer? Why did you choose comics of all effing things? I mean, this is there are easier ways to get rich, to get famous, to put your name out there. So why this, and how did you get to here?
To sum up, I just love comic books. I really got into it because I just love the medium. Not so much the famous or get rich stuff. I figured, I love it so much that the success eventually will come if I just keep grinding. But yeah, I've been collecting comics since I was 12 years old, and I just fell in love with the medium immediately. It was so it was different from novels, TV shows, movies, because of the art form and also the sequential storytelling techniques that artists back in the 90s, and a few artists today, but back in the 90s more so, the borderless panels and 2-page spreads and all these cool poses and detailed art really captivated my 12-year-old mind. And since then, I think it was around 18 when I decided, I'm gonna pursue this. I'm gonna go for this. And it was a long string of trial and error. There weren't many schools to learn how to write comics, so you had kind of how to learn the hard way, which is write and then hope it gets better with time.
what
circa what years was this that you were trying to really figure out how to write comics?
I would say 2003 or 4. 2003 or 4.
You're right. There was
really
nothing.
Started to go for it. I didn't have I didn't get the treatment of I like your stuff, so I'm gonna take you under my wing. Everything was just all trial by fire.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and I was grateful for one editor who I came across because I got hired by another creator to help him write a comic book script, and he had hired an editor, and he looked at my script, and he just totally broke me down, to the point where it burned. It hurt. Yeah, I'm not lying. It hurt.
Thank God for that guy. Right?
But yeah, he reminded me, look, man, I know it sounds like I'm attacking your work, but just know I'm actually giving you constructive criticism, and just take constructive criticism as what the word means. I'm building you up. So think of it like construction. You're building up. So he pointed out what I need to work on, and he pointed out the things that I'm already good at, and that really paved the way to finally see, okay, I got to work on this A, B, and C. And so I went on a hibernation period of sorts where I just, studied. I studied, read any book I could. I read all the comic book scripts from all the greats, Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, and I kind of studied their formatting and how they wrote them. And as I did that, then I started working on short stories, and slowly but surely got to the point where I'm at now, where now I'm a little bit more confident, but I still need work because, Anthony points out stuff. He pointed out stuff in the script where I was like, oh yeah, I need to work on some things.
Artists are always there to make the writers look better in comics. I mean, that's usually a lot of writers I talk to. They're sort of like, oh yeah, I'm in love with my script, and then I hand it off to the artist. They send it back to me, what they do, and they're like, oh, this is so much better. What was I doing? Yeah.
And that's another factor too that I learned, Anthony. Is that I learned the art of collaboration, and that is learning to let go of your script and allowing the artist to interpret it the way they could fit it with how they interpret the script, and then working together through the process of editing. Absolutely. Thumbnails and what have you. So it's been a great journey. It's been great. I have had fun. I mean, there's lulls and highs, and I'm glad I went through them, because here I am still doing it, still grinding, 10 plus years later. So
real quick, Julius, what are some of those early sort of influences in terms of those comic books, those graphic novels that really kind of fed that passion and desire?
Oh man, Alan Moore is number one on that list. Brian Azzarello is another one. I love The 100 Bullets, one of my favorite comics, and I'm surprised to this day that Warner Brothers has not made a TV show out of it. It's so easy. Like I said, you have it there. The premise, the whole thing. I can't believe they haven't.
That and Stray Bullets, right? It's although 100 Bullets, at least it's DC, so it's like Warner Brothers, you have it already. Just make the damn thing. It's like you don't even have to go license it or anything. It
would be 100%. And another one was Peter David was another big influence, because he really showcased how grand comic books can be. And so those three were major influences on my writing.
Nice.
Cool. Nice. All right, Anthony, give us let's switch it over to you.
What's your jacket cover?
What's my jacket cover? I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible, but
We don't do that here. So
okay, all right, cool. Whatever you guys. I didn't want to bore you guys.
You're coming on. I think Julie. I don't know if you guys noticed on our latest social media post, but our last episode, which was was that Monday? It was Mondays. 4 hours and 11 minutes.
I saw that.
I checked out after 2 hours because
Dallas actually left. We brought on, and then another comics media guy impromptu jumped on to take Dallas's place because he was in the comments section.
He was at home drinking and laughing
with
us.
And I'm like, all right. And so I sent him the link, and then he joined, and we just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
And someone made a joke, and they're like,
okay,
no, we're not. I'm not going to do that again. We made a joke that put on the extended edition of Return of the King and that episode at the same time, and they will play in tandem all the way through. And I was like, oh Jesus, that's bad. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, Anthony, go for it.
Honestly, have fun.
Yeah, that's the best. But yeah, I mean, I actually didn't grow up reading comics. I'm a 90s kid, and I grew up watching Batman the Animated Series and X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man and Dragon Ball Z and all those what I don't know, I could be biased just because it's what I grew up with, but it feels like the golden era of those cartoons.
And to a certain degree, yeah, you're right.
I mean, I say it with no shame. I still watch Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond.
A lot of people
they still hold up. As an adult, it's incredible storytelling. So, looking back, I think that was that's what really started my love for storytelling specifically, even if I wasn't aware of it, because it captivated me. And then, as I got older, I kept drawing. I was always drawing. I started really young when I was maybe 3 or 4. My dad actually showed me his high school sketchbook from an art class he had taken. And I thought it was the coolest thing, just, because of how young I was and how amazing it looked. Because it was portraiture, and he had an assignment to draw a horse and then draw the other half of a picture, kind of mediocre assignments. But being able to comprehend that, the first time I was able to comprehend that blew my mind. So I wanted to sit down and try it. And then it's funny because I think back, and I got really into drawing portraits as a preteen, 8, 9 years old. And my dad would look at it and he would see something there and he'd go, you should really try drawing the whole body. And I'm like, nah, that's boring. I don't want, I like focusing on the faces. Fast forward, 10, 15 years, I'm like, I should have friggin' listened to him. But yeah, I didn't I had no introduction to being an illustrator as a career or a comic book artist or any of that. To no one's fault. I just wasn't introduced to it and I had no idea about it. And then I started college as a graphic design major because I had a guidance counselor in high school who said, you like art, maybe try graphic design because you can draw sometimes, but there's a lot of jobs for it and it's a creative field. I was like, all right, whatever. So I didn't really know what I was getting into. And then halfway through my college career, I took an illustration course as an elective, and that was it. That changed everything. Once that professor, took me aside at the end of the first project and said, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. Don't let this go to your head because you're by no means the best artist in this class. But he goes, but you seem to really like this. And I think there's something here. And if you want, if it's your choice, I can help you. And I think you should do this. Wow. And I was like, I'm in. I'm already in just because of the research from the first project that got me hooked. And then after I started learning illustration at 20 years old, what it meant to be a storyteller, then I went back and started, reading comics more and just trying to absorb as much as possible. And in college, I also learned about the history of American illustration, Dean Cornwell, Norman Rockwell, N.C. Wyeth, all those beautiful illustrators from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even 70s. Frank Frazetta, of course. Yeah. So the last 10 years have just been absorbing as much as possible and like Julius said, grinding it out and trying my best to make this happen. And then, after college, I got a job as a full-time graphic designer for Marvel Comics. So I was there for 7 years. During that time, I got my master's in illustration. and I just quit Marvel in March. And 2 days before my last day there, I was walking my dog, and around the corner from my house, there was a for rent sign on the studio that I'm in right now.
You're kidding.
So I I literally I stopped to the point where my dog was like, I got to shit, like, let's go. and like I prayed real quick. I was like, all right, I get it. Thank you. I'm gonna make this happen. And then I started teaching classes, and I have to work with Julius, obviously. And then this semester I got an adjunct teaching position at Montclair State University, which is like 5 minutes down the road from me. So
fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah,
guys, it's been a crazy year. We're also expecting our first child in January, so it's been like
here. Cheers to that.
Blessing on blessing.
Yes.
I'm in a very grateful state, like perpetually, and it feels good. So it's a lot of work.
It's like a year of serendipity for you. My God,
dude, it's been, and depending on how deep you guys want to get, like, this all started. I think the impetus of this was a miscarriage last November, exactly a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And then that's when like all my fear went out the window of quitting my job. All the anxiety was gone. The relationship with God increased, the faith increased, the strength increased, and that was it. Like,
interesting. Yeah, that usually challenges people's faith and people's will. And it's but obviously you can always have that opposite effect as well. But good. Well, I mean, like, now that you're here on the other side, having that big increase and having all the good things that have happened in this past year, that's awesome. Not the thing that started it all.
No. Of course.
Everything's sense. Right.
Yeah.
Anthony, many artists will channel that sort of, any of those peaks and valleys in their artwork, into their artwork. Has any of that featured in any of your work since?
Interesting. I think to an extent, for sure. And well, whatever. If it's too much of a spoiler, I apologize, Julius. But I don't think it is. I'm gonna keep it non-spoilery. But there's a moment in the book where I'm trying not to be spoilery. It's okay. It's a moment where it is about to be a change in dynamic from really bad to hopeful. And what I used to imply that was a structure that is on the shipping container, on the ship, and I made it kind of look like a cross. Not for any religious purposes, but for the basic
architecture
shape,
of it.
The architecture and the implications that the shape has of hope.
Okay, right, gotcha.
Was that okay, Julius?
Very nice.
I don't think
Julius.
He seems very relaxed about it.
I am very relaxed. Yeah, this is kind of a great idea. Wine and comics is kind of cool.
It's great. I'm not even drinking wine. I'm drinking bone broth, but I like it.
Hey,
that's okay.
Whatever works, dude. Whatever works.
Is it homemade?
No, it's not. It's as close as
Are you boiling bones?
Soon. But yeah, there were some moments like that, and then I tried to apply the overall mentality to tackling the book, where I'm not the best illustrator by any means. I struggle a lot even with the fundamentals, but like I tell my students every week, start to look at everything with gratitude and as opportunities instead of hindrances. So when I get really stuck on a page, which has happened many times, instead of getting frustrated or angry, I try to just keep saying, this is going to get you to a next step. This is going to help you. This is going to be better. You're going to be better for the struggling. There's no salvation without suffering. So as heavy as those principles might seem, if you can dwindle it down into these smaller moments, I think it's definitely helped me with everything going on, in a good way. Yeah. In a good way.
Bravo, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Bravo.
So,
all right.
And to give you Dallas's question that he gave Julius as well, you've already listed a couple of artistic influences, but comics specifically, what would you say are your greatest artistic influences? Like, what made you, what made you think like, ooh, this medium, I would love to get into this medium?
Yeah. So initially it was Greg Capullo, because when I started, I think the first series I read was the Snyder and Capullo Batman run from the New 52. Court of Owls, City of Owls, 2010-ish, around there.
Ish, yeah.
And when this is how I knew like there was something there that I didn't know about, but there were certain variations in the lines of the ink that I felt emotionally were beautiful. Not thought, I felt.
Right.
And I was like, what is that? That's weird. Like, why am I responding? Am I like a hippie now? Like, what am I responding to?
Feelings? How does art give me feelings?
Am I like a hippie now?
So that was the first thing that made me think like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then, as I was in school and looking at more artists, it was, early Frank Miller work, Mike Mignola, Eduardo Riso, Mike Henderson, who was maybe a less known artist.
Yeah. He did a lot of nail biter. I'm trying to remember when he got his start. I was reading a lot of a lot of comics. It was a smaller publisher that did the not Stuart Moore's company, and I'm gonna totally forget. They did the Victorian, and
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, this is where Mike Henderson first popped on my radar, but it was a side company before he got into the big two and things like that. But yeah,
nice. But yeah, it was
he's
them,
great.
and then
he's awesome.
And then I think the biggest of all time for me is Tim Sale.
Wildstorm was the company. Sorry,
Wildstorm.
Okay.
Yeah, Tim Sale for me. Like once I started reading his stuff or looking at his work and reading his and Jeff Loeb's books. That was like the total package for me. I love his line work. I love the heavy shadows. His storytelling is so friggin' good. And then like I thought it was pretty cool. I come to find out that he is also a big proponent of studying American illustration and translating it into comics. So it's like traditional principles of illustration, not just American bombastic superhero drawing, which I thought was really cool and really important for people to differentiate. And like his characterization and how whimsical it can be, even in like tense moments. Everything was beautiful to me. So I'm constantly looking at his work. Gabriel Walta is a big one for me right now. I've been looking a lot at his stuff.
What is it? What has he done? That's a new one.
Big title. What's the
title? I think his biggest one is probably The Vision that he did a few years ago with, I'm pretty sure Jeff Lemire was the writer. But recently, or right now, he's working on Phantom Road with Jeff Lemire and Sentient also with Jeff Lemire. I don't know if you guys are aware of that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I know of them. Yeah, I have not read any of them, which is why I don't know him. but yes.
Fantastic.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic. Yes. I tend to lean more towards the illustrators who are like not so perfect. Like everything is always correct, obviously, because you have to be as a professional. But I like the more organic approaches to their art styles.
Right.
I mean, if you've ever seen Tim Sale's Joker, like that cannot happen
it's like
in human form.
Right.
It's impossible. But I don't question it at all. I see it and I go, okay, I accept it.
Right. That's the beauty of a specific hand and a specific art style. That's just
style, right?
Yep.
Yeah. When it works, you don't question a single thing you're looking at, even if you could not. I'm not an artist, so when I look at art, I can't break down what the it is they're doing at all. Like I have no idea how they're causing that effect. Like even if I study the lines, I don't really know what that is. I don't know. I have no language for it. I can just look at it and be like, it just works. Like whatever this whole thing is, it's magic. And that is, I think that's probably what draws a lot of people to comics initially is just whatever that magic harmony of the story, the text, the art, and especially modern comics where artists, like there's such a wide range of styles out there. They've all figured out how to make it work in this medium and they're all doing different things. It's a magic time to be in comics, I think. It is. That reason.
Agreed.
And the indie scene is like, it's crazy to see
massive
what's been happening. And like, thank you to you guys for having us on, but like people like you who have these shows, I would have never in a million years thought this is what I was doing with my career. Like,
Us either.
No, we're on that same boat, buddy.
But again, like it's incredible, you know? And like I tell my students too, like my goal is to, obviously teach you about illustration and drawing and all this stuff and storytelling, but like I want you guys to be independent when you get out of here. It's great to have a job and everything, but if you can be an independent artist, I think that's the real goal. And I don't mean independent selfishly, because you know, as independent artists, we support ourselves by supporting each other.
Right.
So if we can rely on each other and not, you know, the big companies or donors or whatever, it's just, we keep talking about things that are organic, and that's another part of it. Is just keeping the industry afloat and keeping it moving and progressing and improving if possible.
Right. Well, and creativity in general is just, if you don't have that support, if it isn't somewhat of a community, it's a lonely ass thing.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, we're just in our homes / apartments / wherever we are, typing away, scribbling away. And it's like, you know, in the past, like, yes, you could teach, and that's a little bit of interaction, but you're not with peers exactly at that point. You know, that dynamic is different. So to have that community where it's like, we're all doing the same thing and we can understand what we're talking about with each other. We support each other online, in person, at conventions. I mean, there's such an ecosystem now that it wasn't this robust in the past, I don't think. That was, you had to live in New York or California, like where those hubs of whatever the big companies were. And if you didn't, you were just kind of stranded in whatever state or country or whatever you were in. And that was it. There was not a lot of communication or whatnot otherwise. So
then you were posting on Craigslist or putting your art up on MySpace.
Sorry, you missed this, Anthony.
You know?
You missed this, but me and Dallas met on. He posted something on Craigslist, and I responded to it. And this was like 15 years ago, so it was a different era.
Yeah, I was 7 years old.
The fact that we became best friends because we met on Craigslist is a little insane when you say it nowadays. Like, it's one of those things where people are like, how'd you meet? And I'm like, no, let's pass that.
Let's just go on. We did great things after that.
I'll tell you what, after that. After Vigilant Fury, I'll draw that comic. It's hilarious.
Benjamin
Hey,
Soto.
Ben, how's it going, dude?
Thank you, Benjamin.
Hey.
Welcome to the Wine and Comics Pairing Show.
By the way, I just realized you have Vinius Fury as your as your little tag underneath your name.
Thank you. I always put a little wordplay on my host thing.
Does put
no one ever notices, but I'm like, it entertains me.
I saw it, I was like, oh, nice.
And I never changed mine. Mine is the same one I had like 3 days ago. So.
But you do change it like once every other week or something like that. Yeah. He gets there. I try and change it every time. I'm kind of running. I'm running thin. That's why I have to now look to the comic, and I'm like, what's the title of the comic? Can I make wordplay out of that? I'm out of original ideas, so I have to do something in that regard. But
that's cool.
All right. So why don't let's start talking about Vigilant Fury in specific. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to take a look at the campaign page while we talk about this, because it's important that everyone can see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Vigilant Fury, here we go. All right, so Vigilant Fury, second chance campaign. Angela Peretz will kill her way to freedom. So this is a story. I'm going to give a quick little brief rundown. And just so everyone knows, we have seen, this is an 80-page graphic novel. We got to read 19 pages of this comic beforehand. We don't know what happens after page 19, so we can only talk about up to the first 19 pages, at least intelligently. And when we pair the wines a little bit later, pair the comic with the wines a little bit later, we are going off those first 19 pages. So if there's any super surprises or tonal shifts or anything like that, we have no idea. So we're only going.
Maybe what we will do is return to this in a few months or weeks after we've read the entire thing. And so
we've read the entire thing. There you go. But this is, 19 pages was plenty in terms of just, honestly, when Julius first reached out to see if he could be on the show, I went to the campaign page and I read the log line and I was like, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm like, sold. Let's do this. And, so this is basically Angela Peretz is kidnapped by human traffickers, but she is in that very like Taken or John Wick style, she is much more of a badass than anyone expected, and she fights her way to freedom. In its way, it is just that very straightforward 80s action. Well, not even 80s. I mean, we're kind of back in the 80s action now. Like I just referenced Taken and John Wick, which have nothing to do with the 80s. So, or something like Nobody, which is another one, where it's like that person who's unassuming. You don't think they're a badass, but they totally are. And then you're going to learn what, and here's the thing. We don't know why she's a badass. I don't know if there is a really particular plot reason for that. I'm assuming there is, but in the first 19 pages, that is not revealed.
Blink twice if there is some really big reveal there, guys.
I'm assuming there is a backstory of some kind, but we don't know what that is. But, you know, you can see here's Anthony's artwork. And this is really cool. I got to see these sample pages that are ink washed on top of the normal art. And then the 19 pages we saw were actually kind of preview pages pre-ink wash.
I was going to say, you saw some crappy pages.
Oh, come on, Anthony. Come on.
Well,
except part of the process.
Well, and frankly, we saw these pages so we could fill in the blanks in terms of like, we know there's another step and that this is going to become, it's going to have the textures of these pages. And then I made sure I made sure Dallas knew that as well. I was like, here's the 19 pages, but here's the campaign page. Make sure you look at the sample pages there because that is the final art style. Yes. And it does make a difference. It really, there's a lot more depth to it here. A lot, and as I said, texture to the artwork, but it is, you know, it takes place predominantly on this sort of shipping container boat.
Great setting. Great choice of setting, by the way.
Great choice of setting.
Great choice of setting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And it is, so tell us a little bit about like, where did this story come from in particular? What were the inspirations there? Yeah. Talk a little bit about Vigilant Fury.
Yeah. So this story was one of those things where I'm sure Dallas and Dave, you may be aware, and also Anthony, it was an idea that kept poking at me, you know, like a woodpecker, just like the idea was someone escaping from their captivity, and I had to write this idea down, and it went through 3 iterations. The first one was supposed to be about a group of pulp heroes, what do you call them? The public domain pulp heroes,
right, like Shadow, Doc Savage, that kind of thing.
And they're going to escape from their captivity from an underground lair. And then, as I was writing the story, I found myself liking the characters, and I was killing them off. And I was like, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna save this one because I kind of like these characters." And so then I changed it to an aspiring MMA fighter who, you know, wants to make it to the UFC, but he just doesn't have the killer instinct. Yeah. And that's what his trainer tells him, like, you just don't have it. You have the heart, but you don't have that killer instinct to make it to the big time. And then he ends up helping a girl who runs away, escapes from her captivity, and he protects her from her captors. But then my wife, one day, just out of the blue, when I told, because my wife is usually my audience, my test audience. I pitch her the idea, and if she tells me, "Oh, that sounds good," then I go, "Okay, it sucks. It's not good. I gotta work it. I gotta rework it." Then she just told me, "You know, I kind of seen the wolf versus wolf, you know, idea." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, you know, man versus man, the male versus male. I've seen that already. Why not make it a woman?" And I was like, "Huh." And the wheel started turning. I was like, "Okay." Because then she told me. Then she went on to say, "I would find it more interesting if it was a fox going up against a pack of wolves, because now she has to she has to rely on her wits. She has to rely on her, you know, how can she avoid going toe to toe, you know, or head to head with a pack of wolves." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And so
skill set.
I reworked the plot again. And then when I wrote it finally, when I finished it, I pitched it to her. She loved it, and then that's when I put out the feelers of looking for an artist, and that's essentially how the story came about. It took me about a month or 2 to develop the story after I had really grasped, okay, I gotta change the protagonist from a male to female. I changed the setting based off research of of human trafficking and how that whole thing functions. And so I found this article from 2000, I believe it was 2001, where it was a BBC article where a Long Beach port crew discovered this container that had a makeshift doorway that they saw it and were like, what is this? And they opened it and they found a bunch of, empty water bottles and all sorts of stuff that indicate people were there.
Yeah. Right.
And so that kind of helped with okay, I'll just take this and then build off that and so on and so forth. And then I reached out to, on Twitter looking for an artist, and Anthony answered the call amongst all sorts of other artists. And, talking about storytelling, talking about, his influences and what have you. When I saw his stuff, I was like, I like this. This probably is the closest to what I was picturing in my head when I was developing the story. And that's how I got Anthony to come on board, because I pitched him the idea, the story. He loved it, and then off to the races we went.
Anthony, was that the first time you'd responded to a call like that, or what? And firstly, what made you respond to it?
This is my first professional.
Yes, the Craigslist friends want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I did 8 or 9 pages of a short story that I don't even know if got published back in like 2017, 2018. I don't know. I don't really count that, but this was my first like major professional comic book art job.
This is his first book, guys.
This is my first book, 80 pages.
Sweet.
3 different art styles. But anyway,
no, you're right.
I'll be more happy to share that story.
You are right to be impressed with yourself.
starting to tick from the trauma. But do you guys know Rob Geronimo, creator of Blood Realm for Alterna Comics?
Yes.
So he texted me a link one day, and like no context, no nothing. It was just a Twitter link, and I was like, this could go many ways. I don't know what this is. So I opened it, and it was Julius's text, or not text, his tweet. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay. And yeah, I didn't think anything of it. There were dozens of replies already with other people's artwork. And if I remember correctly, like Julius didn't put anything about the story in the tweet. Like he was just saying, I'm looking for an artist. And I was like, I guess I'm an artist. Here, look at my shit, see if you like it.
Wow.
And then it was so, honestly, it was so stupid the way that it happened. Like if you think about it, it's so dumb.
Oh, no,
but
we understand.
It's incredible.
Right. It's like you both find each other in that
you found your people.
That weird open-minded / desperate moment where you would respond to something like that, and you're like, yeah, okay, and you even look back at yourself and you're like, why did I respond to that? I'm glad I did, but why did I?
I know.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, that's exactly it. And he's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. Like we've never even met in person. Like it's just crazy, but it's I don't know, man. It's incredible how things work nowadays, especially with getting jobs. But like, that was it. Like, it's not a crazy symbiotic story or anything.
It was one of those things where at that point, I had been in the game for a while, so I as I was saying earlier, I'm a lot more confident in terms of seeing, like you mentioned earlier, Anthony, about your art instructor in college. Seeing something in your work and going, you know what? I could tell. It was the same thing for me when I saw the samples you sent me. It was like, okay, I could see, I could work with this. I could work with this because you had the fundamentals down of sequential storytelling, which is what I was looking for. And not only that, but also the style too, the black and white style. I really did love your inks and the way you approached shadows and mood and aesthetic. And I was like, this is what I need. I need this kind of artist to work with me with this kind of story that I'm looking for. Because I think originally we flirted with the idea of doing it in color, but then ultimately we decided, you know what, let's just keep this in black and white because the story is such a dark story of sorts that we decided, you know what, let's just do it black and white and keep it that way.
It's amazing. I will say those first few pages, there's a couple of them that remind me of Chiaroscuro, which is Troy Little's graphic novel. Are you familiar? You remember that, Dave, right?
I remember that. Yeah. It was an indie comic from the early to mid 00s. I want to say.
Yeah,
so it might be before your guys' time.
That's true.
Being deep into comics or indie comics.
What was the name of it?
He does this. They do this amazing job, and again, to your credit, you do the same. It's in the same sort of sphere, where just the shading alone with the black and the white and the grayscale, which isn't terribly uncommon, but to pull it off effectively for as many pages as you do, it can be difficult. So,
and funny story about that is that before we started, we had decided, okay, let's go with the Frank Miller.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Can you zoom yourself or full screen?
Oh, yeah. Here, I can. Let me I'll just stop sharing for a quick second.
Yeah.
Where's the stop sharing button? And then we can come on in. And this is like kind of
nice.
Yeah.
One of my favorites of all time.
He's really, really good at black and white, and then he does all his own lettering, and it's very almost like Dave Sim like Cerebus, where the lettering just
I'm digging that. That's
and
cool.
is a part of the comic.
What's the name of that comic?
Chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro. Now there is a Vertigo comic called Chiaroscuro as well. So look for the non-Vertigo. Look for it's back. Yeah, it's flipped, but Troy Little.
Troy Little.
Write that down.
So you might want to write that down, and then the Chiaroscuro from Vertigo is very much worth it. Totally different art style.
Totally different.
If you want. Yeah, totally different, but still very, very worth it.
Yeah, but get this one first.
Nice. Yeah, that's how we started the book. And the samples that I showed Julius were actually from something I was working on at the time that has yet to be published. It was something that a buddy and I were developing just to have something, and I guess that was its purpose, was to get Julius's attention. But that was a fantasy story, and that black and white was working really well for that. I've yet to fully pinpoint why it was working for that, but I couldn't get it to work for Vigilant Fury.
Right.
And I think I was feeling the pressure a little bit, maybe, of working a full-time job and everything and trying to get this done too. And I was trying to take shortcuts and focus on where all the ink and the blocks and the shapes would go. But the drawing ended up suffering, the fundamentals, the actual anatomy, everything. The drawings themselves were suffering. And that, led me to this way of working, and I'm way happier with it.
Yeah, it was definitely a process. We decided to go kind of emulate Frank Miller's Sin City look, the harsh black and whites.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And like Anthony just said, it wasn't working for him, and he had posted an ink wash piece that he did for
I did actually on Ben Soto's. I did on Ben Soto's show. The first time I did
Ben Soto's show
was a sketch for Ben, or not for Ben, but on Ben's show.
Yeah,
right.
For I think Spencer Desmond was his name, right?
Yeah. So I did a ink wash study on Ben's show, and then I did Spencer's commission in ink wash.
And I messaged him. I was like, dude, I had no idea you could do ink wash. And Gambino was like, yeah, neither did I. I was like, okay, well. And then after that, that's when he decided, well, let's do the book in ink wash. And then I was like, well, we already have 20 pages drawn with the old style. And then I always love Gambino's answer to that, which was, well, are the backers going to complain that I made the book look better?
Nice.
I was like, nice. Good point.
I can't take credit for that. That was also Geronimo, because I was talking to him about everything. And I was like, do you think that's going to be okay? And he was like, oh, you think they're going to get mad from looking better? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, Julius, do you think they're going to get mad that the book looks better?
And he was right, because one of the backers did reach out to me privately and was wondering, hey, what's going on? You were promised this date, and so they didn't see the update on Indiegogo. So I DM'd them back. gave him a few samples of this new ink wash style, and immediately he was like, "Oh, great, fantastic! That's all I need to know. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. This looks even better. I'm excited." Then cool, we're good.
Yeah, it's all, I suppose if someone thinks there's no communication because they missed the communication, then it's more like they're upset about that, not really the delay itself is not in and of itself what they're upset about. So if you have a good reason, people are 99 out of 100, if not more, are totally okay with that. That tends to be the way. But this art
definitely communication is definitely key. With any crowdfunding campaign, you always want to be communicative with your backers, so that way they have peace of mind.
So did you toy with the idea of going with another crowdfunding platform, or was it always Indiegogo?
we did, and I did some research. I know Kickstarter. We would love to do Kickstarter. Maybe we will this time around, but I just know that Kickstarter backers like their books to be a little shorter than 80 pages. Unless it's a collected edition of sorts. But in my research, I found out they like to back books that are 20 pages long, that are a little more accessible financially. So
I can see that
$6-7, that kind of stuff. Because then it's not such a high risk to back someone and wait a year.
Well, especially if you're coming out the gate with that, right? Because I think that's the thing on Kickstarter. We mentioned right before we started going live that we have our own coming up in January. And my original idea was, the entire series is done of this comic that I want to bring back into print. And so I just wanted to do graphic novels because I'm like, why would I waste my time with single issues? But you got to build the readership, right? You've got to build your audience. And so it can be hard to jump right into this is a bigger book, but it's all done. So you're backing that. I will say, though, you're only looking for $500 as your minimum here on Indiegogo. And I know this book can do, I see that you haven't made, it's been, how many days have you been live at this point for this campaign?
Yeah, a little over 30 days now.
This is the second
month.
Thank you.
On Kickstarter, I strongly suspect you could have gotten that 500 on day one. I'm gonna put that out there as my, if I had seen this on Kickstarter, and Indiegogo is one of those that, if I'm following someone, like a creator already, I will follow them over to Indiegogo just fine. That's something I don't worry about too much. I think everyone kind of there's a psychological element because Indiegogo, of course, collects your money ASAP. The moment you pledge, you're paying. And other people, I think on Kickstarter, there's a psychological element which works in creators' benefit. And I know I've fallen victim as a backer to this coming where I'm like, I can't really afford it, but I'm not paying for 30 days. So let me go ahead and click it anyway. And then I don't bother to cancel it before the end, whether or not. And, if I'm in dire financial straits, which knock on wood, I have not been in for a while now in my life. Yes, I would probably remember to cancel. But even when it's just money's tight, I'm penny pinching for whatever, I've had medical bills or a car repair that I'm like, ooh, that hurt. I don't want to, I might want to pull back on it, but I never do. And I will always pledge more freely on Kickstarter just because you're not paying for it the day you pledge. And man, that gets me every effing time.
It's all good to know.
Yes.
But that's for the next campaign. Right now, you are totally going to get what you guys are looking for.
I think so.
Fury campaign.
You will make 500. I have no doubt. And I'm going to push this fairly hard even after this episode drops because this is the 19 pages I read. I loved it. This, like I said, I went to go see the campaign page when you were like, well, this is what we got brewing. And I'm like, it's fucking fantastic. I want to, come on the show. Let's talk about it. And I want to read it. So send it to me. So all of those fun things. But it's a great idea. It's a great campaign. The fact that you've gone a month without making $500, I'm like, ooh, this book deserves more and it should have more.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I think because this is the second chance, I
suppose that too. You're right.
We kind of we already made the money in the first campaign, and I think for the most part, whoever was going to get the book got it already. Thank God.
Right.
So and also I've been I've been slacking with promotion. Like I'm not even gonna lie and come up.
None of
with
and none of
I
us
told you,
blame
Anthony.
any of the. Yeah, we
Like,
can't blame each other for like we're exhausted from marketing and social media. Like, do we really want to just keep doing it day in and day out? Like we all get that. Yeah,
and that's why well, at least I don't want to speak for Julius too, but like that's for me at least. That's why like we're focusing on Indiegogo right now.
Yeah,
we'll get the second chance campaign done. And then I think like once the book is completely done, like production, everything, then like Julius and I have talked about it a little bit already. Like we're 100% like totally fine with going on Kickstarter and different platforms. And
yes,
I think that'll help us if anything, because it's like, hey, we have proof of concepts. The book is done already. It's in our hands. We've successfully campaigned or crowdfunded 2 campaigns on another platform. Like it's a win-win for you guys. You have nothing to lose.
Exactly.
You don't have to wait at all. Like you can get it in a couple days.
Right.
So I think that's, like we have our certain marketing strategies for getting the book crowdfunded when it's new. I think we're going to shift to a different marketing strategy for when it's already done. And I think it'll be
something
successful.
to keep in mind too, because I know a couple of creators that use this strategy between the 2 platforms. If you're going to do something like a second chance, that's exactly the time to switch platforms, because whole new backer pool that's not on the same one. And a lot of people I know go the opposite direction, where they'll start on Kickstarter, and then once they've made their whatever, like the amount they actually needed to make to print the book, to get it done, to get it out there, then they're like, okay, let's do another one on Indiegogo just to pull in whoever wasn't on Kickstarter. And to give, and Indiegogo allows you also, Kickstarter might now, this is actually something I'm not well versed on, but Indiegogo has always had that thing where you can kind of put it up just to like buy, you go, and I've seen Geronimo do this before with one of his campaigns, where it's not a campaign that has any time on it. You just go and keep ordering the book right there.
In demand,
on demand, yeah. And Kickstarter might have that now. At one point, only Indiegogo had that. Kickstarter might have been like, oh hell, we got to catch up, and then did it. I don't know. But yeah, so sometimes they'll like do the campaign on Kickstarter, then go over to Indiegogo and do the on-demand thing on Indiegogo, but then market that as like, this is where you go if you miss the campaign. But lots of different, like definitely especially if you don't have a preference between the 2 platforms, being able to use them both. They are different pools of people. Not every person is different, of course. Like I'm on both, but there's going to be definitely some people that heavily preference one versus the other.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to go find them by jumping. Yeah.
The second chance campaign was mainly to give backers who probably were on the fence on the first time around to back it, so that they could get the freaking low price of Gambino's commissions, because they're not going to be low after this. So
they're not going to be. It's not that. That's not the commission. That's not that low.
The perk we recommend is the I believe it's the $70 one, right?
Yeah, I think it's
the one at the very top. Yeah.
That one. That's the one that's featured, because it's the book and a 9x12 commission piece by Anthony, and that's whatever it is that you want within reason.
That's amazing.
So anything that you have in mind, it could be a portrait of a loved one, it could be a superhero, your favorite superhero, or whatever the case, but within reason. That's
a hell of a perk, guys.
Yeah. Well, listen, this whole project was, for me at least, like I wanted to get my first comic book work under my belt, but it's also mainly to help get my name out there some more. Like I had some success with my first project with the sketchbook. That went really well. Again, giving thanks to Geronimo. I was on his drawing stream for I think I made 25 appearances within a calendar year. I was on there almost every week. So that helped me gain somewhat of an audience, including Mr. Ben Soto, who's here tonight. So yeah, I wanted to keep the commissions affordable. I also plan on doing a small crowdfunding campaign once all the commissions are done for a black and white commission sketchbook. Again, just to keep the name relevant and keep people's eyes on my work. Something a little different than the narrative art. So
good call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
And then later on, I'll color them and posterize them and turn them into prints to sell in my shop.
Damn
There
right.
you go.
Sweet.
And you get an 80-page comic book. I mean, what else
you get an
ask for?
80-page comic book.
$15.
Yeah, for $15 exactly. Low price.
That's great.
And again, we've at least read 19 pages of it, not even the finished pages, and we love it. So that should tell you something of what it's going to be when you get the full finished art and finished book. And once I'm done with this show, I will go back it as well, because that is something.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right.
100%. I meant to do it before we actually started the show, and then it was like 5 minutes before, and I'm like, oh, damn it. But that's coming.
It's all good.
No worries. No worries.
But all right, I think we're at the point now. Let's actually talk about the wines me and Dallas paired with this comic, at least the bit that we read. So Dallas, you are the number one man this time around.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, boys. So generally when we get to these pairings, what I do is I choose my sort of dynamic for pairing. It's usually either the wine I would want to drink if I were walking in the world of the comic, or the wine I would drink while I'm sitting in my moody living room with my moody lighting and my moody jazz records playing in the background.
Nice.
I love this.
And for this piece, I decided I would like to be a character just walking the sort of halls of this ship, not engaged in the action, just sort of a specter who happens to be observing, walking room to room.
I think that's a possibility, but okay.
Hey, buddy, this is my world. Anything's a possibility.
That's right, Dallas.
Damn it. We're pairing wine with comics. All right. We're out of the realm of possible.
Anything's possible.
Exactly. And I knew I wanted something that was sort of powerful like that. I knew I wanted to sort of sniff the wine deeply every few sips. I knew I wanted to kind of just, unveil itself as I was walking through this world and watching this, the horror show unfold, to a certain degree. So I wanted something intense. I wanted something that had some sort of wild undertones, maybe some wild berries. I knew I wanted something that had some maybe tobacco, because I imagine the guys who were involved in this sort of fiasco probably smoked some tobacco. They maybe had access to some good Cubans. I knew I wanted something that was sort of deep and fleshy and juicy. And I decided, of course, I'd go with, a red hello. And I actually went
half
with,
expecting you to do a white on this one. I'll explain that later, but yeah.
To be fair,
I didn't. This is the one I'm pairing it with. So yeah, we both went with red. That's good.
To be fair, I almost did. I actually almost did.
Yeah.
But I actually went with a Centopassi, which is a Perricone grape. It is another sort of Sicilian, Italian wine. It is red. It is deep. It is intense. It is jammy. And I've actually paired another vintage with another comic a few months ago, and this is a different year, different vintage. But the grape itself is a very small, very little sort of cultivated, so it's not terribly popular, but it is the dominant blending grape for the region. It is just one of those wines you sort of just walk around with or sit with and chew on. It sort of just blossoms with every sip, with every glass, and that's my guy. It is a 2017 Centopassi Cimento di Perricone, a Sicilian, and I highly recommend you guys go and
that's a native to Sicily grape, isn't it? Perricone?
It is.
There you go. There you go. So
nice.
That's why most people haven't heard of it. But yes,
I'm Sicilian and I haven't even heard of it.
There you go. All right.
Shame on you, Gambino. Shame on you.
I know. Can I just say real quick, and I mean this as the ultimate compliment, what just happened is my favorite kind of absurdity. That made me so effing happy.
To be fair,
the amount of thought that went into all that,
yes,
doesn't matter, but it matters so much to you, and I can tell, and I love it, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I can say this. I have been an absurd human being, not by choice, my entire life, and I finally found.
I know.
I genuinely love that.
I mean, that's humanity in a nutshell. We're all absurd, not by choice. But when you get to know any of us, we're all pretty fucking absurd.
But you just you found the two things that you love, and you found a way to marry them together, and it it makes sense. I love it. This is so much fun. I'm having so much fun.
Makes sense to us. Everyone else enjoys. Makes sense to us. We're like, what? You would drink this too, right? And you're like, sure.
Now I would.
Now you would.
I'm also all right. So thinking of like me doing the pages and the sequences and the chase scenes and everything in the book, picturing Dallas like sitting there going, like watching all this murder and mayhem.
Here's what's crazy. I am the guy.
Glass.
I'm not joking you. I'm the guy. I regularly, in the past, have friends who are artists or writers, and I will invite them over to sit and write, and I will drink in the background or work on my thing at the same time where there's really weird music. I just enjoy the idea of someone else being in a creative space and me being in a creative space and just being in it. So yeah, I'm that guy.
You never went to school for it or anything, right?
Not for art, no.
I think you would love the studio environment. That was my favorite thing about grad school. It's my favorite thing now that I have my own studio and I share it with somebody like that. I think you would love that.
Yeah.
And
it's funny. We're in LA, so when you say studio, it means something completely different.
Oh no, not like studio.
There's that moment where I'm like, no, we would not love the studio.
No, but Anthony, you're right. I did a sort of a gallery space thing where I was sitting there writing on a script, and I invited an artist to paint the background, and there was a musician in the corner, practicing. You're right. I enjoy that thing. That's my thing. Yeah, the sort of salon aspect.
Yeah. And I do the same thing here. Instead of alcohol, I have my espresso, and I have my record collection, and it's the same. Or I'll go by my buddy's house, who's a music producer, and like while he's working on beats, I draw.
Exactly.
It's the best. Yeah.
It's just something about the electricity of creativity in the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah.
We have wine and music coming in the future too.
We do. If I ever edit the videos, we have wine and music coming in the
future. All right. All right. So I went similar thing to Dallas. I went with the red. This book to me, I think I've already mentioned how it felt. I've got a very big Hollywood background, so of course I went straight to those sort of, whether it's revenge, rescue, or get out alive action movies where it's that one protagonist, and it's always that person you least suspect to be this kick-ass, right? So you've got like your nobody, your Taken, your and I suppose from a female perspective, the only one we have really is Atomic Blonde, but she is meant to be kick-ass in that, so it doesn't quite one for one on that. Most of the female action movies, you usually go in, they're already like a special forces or have some kind of background that like, going in that they're amazing. It's rare that you are. I think this is the first story I know of where you have a female protagonist who is, by as far as we know, a normal everyday person. And then they wind up, it's like, whoa, where did this come from? What's going on? Who is she? Right.
The only one I can think of and who I kept in the back of my head throughout this process is Sarah Connor.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. But she starts normal and then sort of like, right, we miss the training. Like, we skip over
the storyline.
That's very true.
Depending on the storyline, yeah.
I would say Ripley. I would say probably Ripley.
Oh yeah, Ripley.
From Alien.
Yeah,
I think she has a specialized skill set that is just challenged once she gets to that space.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right. It's
similar to Sarah Connor though. Even with Ripley, like she starts somewhat normal in the first one. Like she makes it out alive by the skin of her teeth.
Yes.
And then that experience hardens her to where when she has to do it again and again and again, she is becoming steadily, and by the fourth one, she is a superpowered clone of herself at that point. So it's like at that point, it's like we keep jumping in time to where she becomes yet more badass, but we are sort of along for the ride on that. This is the only one I can think of where it's just sort of like, that whole in media res, like just go, you're in the middle of the thing. It's just the middle of her life. We don't know who she is. As far as we know, she's going out and partying at the beginning of the graphic novel, just normal everyday girl. She gets kidnapped. You're like, oh shit. But then when she starts to do her like, well, I've got to escape, you're like, oh, this isn't just a normal person trying to escape. What is this? Like what she's doing and the skills she's displaying is more than just someone being desperate and having the will. There seems to be some sort of skill set underneath that and some sort of experience where she is like coming to this not fresh, so it's like, but I don't know what it is. I haven't read that deep into the graphic novel, but because it is in line with that type of a thing, this is a kind of story that from an action story perspective, it's very classic. It's like we know what this is the moment we go into it. The moment we see the log line, we're like, ooh, I love those kinds of stories. Let's go into this. It has that slight unique quality though with the protagonist and with not knowing her background, and that's going to be the fun part. But outside of that, I really wanted to go with a wine that was very traditional in its way, because but also is a red and has that sort of depth and complexity and meat on its bones. Because this is the kind of action movie where it's like it's not a comedy action, it's not lighthearted. It's not, this is a very serious action movie, but I didn't want to go as heavy as something like, say, like California Cabernet Sauvignon, which is like, that's a little too, in its way, simple, but it's got the right body and depth. No, I did not. Okay. What I went with.
Yes.
And now, if I'd done Argentinian Cab Sauv, that actually would have I'd stuck to Cab Sauv, but I actually switched the grape up a little bit. And I went with a Santa Barbara Syrah. And this is from my favorite Santa Barbara winery that's called Jaffurs. And they do single varietal Syrahs. Syrahs are one of those, it's still got that inky purple depth to it, but it also has Santa Barbara, it's pretty much coastal. It's got a much more of a cooler climate element to it, which gives it a lot more acidity. And there is in Syrah, unlike like Cabernet Sauvignon, you just get the dark fruit and maybe a little bit of tobacco and like cedar box kind of a thing. In Syrah, you wind up with all these, like this has that dark, nice purple, like blackberry, black plum, a little bit of black currant. And then you've got things like bacon fat and olives and then herbs like, thyme in there. And it just rounds it out in this way where it's like a whole meal in a glass, but all the different flavors all happening at once. And that's something that Cab Sauv often cannot quite reach that complexity. It can't quite reach all those notes going on. And then Syrah itself is just a teeny bit, and especially coming from a cooler climate, kind of like going to Argentinian Cab Sauv, it backs off a little bit on that weight and that depth. And so you wind up finding that
definitely recedes a bit. Yeah, that's true.
Man.
So you get that perfect sweet spot of what I thought this comic was, where you've got it's fast paced. Like, I mean, it doesn't waste time. It's fast paced. No. It gets you into the thick of it right away. It is heavy themes and the action is very serious, but it's still action in that fun way. Like, you are rooting for the hero and you're pretty sure that hero's going to mostly succeed, if not entirely succeed.
But you don't know how.
So you're right. So you're along for that ride, and then you've got that fun element of, as Julius said, you've got the fox going up against the pack of wolves, which is just that extra bit of exciting, because you're like, how is this gonna work? I'm in. And so cool. I think a cool climate, but still Californian, so not too cool. Syrah, And this is the one that I knew it had all those notes kind of going on at once because it is one of my favorite wineries. So I already knew what this was going to taste like. And this is what I drank what I sipped while reading those 19 pages. And I'm going to crack open another one when I finally get the full thing.
Nice.
That's
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I see it.
I suddenly do not feel adult enough to be on this show.
Trust me, we are toddlers in other areas.
Yeah. In the actual wine world, we often say we are not professionals. We are just geeks. We are just wine geeks and comic geeks. We don't actually know how any of this shit works.
I will rarely get into a conversation about
the way you guys are looking at your wine. It's like you're professionals with the wine.
Yeah, I mean the Vinous Fury part makes a lot more sense now.
Oh my god, I love this. I love this.
That's great. I forgot to mention this.
Blanco tequila?
Huh?
What are you drinking? Is that
Are you drinking a Blanco tequila? Or is
no, I'm drinking Whitehaven Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh,
nice!
I saw that.
Okay. Oh yeah, Crystal. Like
that's what I'm drinking.
I don't know if you saw it on your end, but when you held up the bottle, it glitched, so there was no bottle, and you just looked like that really drunk guy. At the
really? Right.
You're
not holding anything.
Yeah, your background like absorbed it. It was like that's not part of you.
There you go. I don't know if you can see it.
Kinda. All right.
I forgot to mention this funny part about the progress of the story.
Yeah.
When I originally pitched the idea to Anthony, I told him, "Oh, dude, 40 pages, no problem. This is gonna be a 40-page one shot." And at that point, I had written the summary of the story, and so as I was expanding on the summary and writing the script, the first draft was 50 pages. So I was like, okay, no big deal. I tell you, it's gonna be about 50 pages. Gambino was like, no problem. So I told him the way I like to work is I like to do a few edits before I give you the script, so that way everything's solid and everything's good.
Edits,
and I did another edit.
Editions.
Yeah, I did another edit. Ended up being 60 pages. And I was like, sorry, it's actually going to be 60 pages. And I did another edit. It went up to 70, and eventually it went to 80. And he was like, dude.
So Anthony, at one point were you like, you may not edit again. Like you must stop editing.
I don't know.
But here's what I did though. After I was done, I told him, I said, look, I'll give you the script. If you can figure out how to cut 40 pages from this, I'm all ears. I'm all open. Go for it. Chop it up. Figure it out if you can. Because I can't. I tried and I can't.
So basically, Julius, you're like, here are 40 more pages. Now go edit before you start the art process.
Yeah, I was like, I figured it out. You can make 2 books.
That's right.
I could have made 2 books.
Or this
one. But yeah, he read it and he read it, and then he came back to me and said, we can't cut this. We got to keep it intact.
Nice.
So, there was honestly, and again, to the best of my knowledge and my experience, there was 0 fat.
Right.
The only thing, if I remember correctly, there were some pages where I was like, hey, this actually needs to be 2 pages, or these can be condensed into 1.
Yeah.
It all kind of balanced out.
It really did.
Great.
And honestly, another thing about me, nothing against the means of production, but I personally don't like, as a collector, I don't like single issues. I don't like collecting them. I don't like buying them. I hate storing them. I think they look from a aesthetic. I think they look hideous, just tucked in a box.
That's so crazy.
So I was like, bro, we're doing a trade paperback. I don't care if it's 40 or 80. It's going to be a paperback regardless. And I don't really care about building notoriety. We'll make these mofos want our work in one way or another. But yeah, there was a part of me that I never was considering backing out of the project. I was just stressing because I knew how long it would take.
Yeah. That was my stress. My stress was like, oh my God, he's going to quit. He's going to be like, you know what, man? You promised me 40 pages. You didn't give me 40 pages. I'm out. I'm out of here. I didn't sign up for this,
Actually, real quick, let's dig around that point for a second. What was the timeline like from getting that first 40-page prospect to Anthony to sort of the completed project? What was that timeline?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I don't think I gave Anthony the 40 pages. That was more like I just told him it's going to be about 40 pages because that was my
right.
That was my wishful thinking, you know.
Right.
And then as I expanded on the script, and I realized, ooh, wait a minute, no, it's going to be this. And then as I added more, and I added it more and more and more, like you said, no fat because I don't like to have fat. I like to keep it nice and tight, as every plot should be.
So you're sizist, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
you heard it here first, guys. Julius is sizist. But go on.
What was that?
Sizist.
Oh, so I just figured, you know what? I'm just gonna take the risk, and if he bails, then you know what? That was on me. That was on me for not having it ready for him and not properly, preparing. And kudos to Mr. Gambino here, a total pro. He was like, all right, well, it is what it is. I read the script. I couldn't find anything to cut out, and if we do, we'll pretty much sever the plots. I guess I can't think of the word at the moment.
What?
But he pretty much says we can't compromise it. We can't compromise the plot. If we do, if we cut anything out, it's going to compromise the plot, and the reader will kind of be left like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense because A, B, and C, whatever.
Right.
And so I was like, great. This is great. And as Anthony told me in the past, he's like, well, it's more money for me, so I guess I shouldn't complain.
I mean, there's that practical part to it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned before, like the kind of the beauty of the singular narrative. Like the book is, there's one conflict and it's getting from point A to point B.
Yes.
Quite literally, because it's on one location. And the plot and the size of the book, I think, really matters, because if it was 40 pages, it would have been like, well, what the hell did I just read? Like they just went from here to here in 2 seconds. Right. And then if it's any longer, it starts to get dragged out, and you're like, okay, like we get it. We know what they're doing. Right. Just show us how to get there. So I think this is kind of the sweet spot. And I think Julius included enough different characters and different appearances where it feels fresh.
Right.
Yes.
Every time.
Even in just the 19 pages that we read, like some of the bad guys, like we actually get moments with them to make them like they're not just faceless henchmen. Right. Yeah. So which you need space and time and pages to make that happen. Exactly. And even as an action thing, action, it's funny. One of the things I do, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Letterboxd film review site, which is all like amateur fan driven. Like when you watch movies, you just post reviews and then interact with people about everything you wrote and what you thought about the movies and blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that I do on Letterboxd, I have an action junkie score that I have for every movie, where I clock the amount of action time in every action movie. And I actually record how much is in each thing as I watch action movies. And the sweet spot in like 90% of them is exactly 1/3 of the movie.
Yeah.
And that, so if it's an hour and a half, it's going to be approximately 30 minutes of action.
Nice.
And there are some movies that break that rule, that go to like 50%, and it's a drag. The moment you break through that, the action starts to feel like redundant and overwhelming. You're just like, stop fighting, stop.
Right.
I mean, you're just
please say a word.
You're just punching and kicking and blowing shit up. I can't. Like you hit this weird, like it's like something like when you're enjoying eating something and then it suddenly becomes cloying and too heavy, and you pass that point where you're not enjoying it anymore. Yeah. And it was fascinating to me that every time I would get a movie that broke that 1/3 rule, and if it's more than just a little bit of a break, if it's like they're going 10, 20 or more % past that, every time I did this action junkie score because I love action movies. Like it's my favorite genre of all time, especially like martial arts and like choreographed action.
Yeah. Just like FYI, I've been floating around this idea of starting our own stunt awards yearly.
Oh, nice!
I still haven't. I've gone past the sort of idea stage, but we're good.
Yeah. Cool, but anyway, even for me, you pass that sweet spot, and even I'm like, oh wow, this is hard. like this is a drag. That is really interesting. So I think you're on to something when you mentioned that sweet spot. And like, since this is a almost pure action comic, I think you could go, if you went to 120 pages or something, you might hit that point where you're like, this is the same thing for too many pages, right?
Exactly.
And it's like you can't mix it up enough to keep it fresh. So
And the other thing that hopefully gets across, and that kind of I think complements what you're talking about with the action, is it's not pure, kicky foot. Like it's not just punching and kicking. What Julius was talking about before of Angela being the fox, it's,
strategizing.
You're going to see action sequences where we don't see her. And you're going to, the reader is going to wonder what's happening a little bit, but intentionally, because she's, like you said, strategizing and using the shadows to her advantage and being methodical about her takedowns.
Yeah.
Takedown.
Yeah. All right. So to wrap us up, guys, and this might be something I'm thinking I might not have told Julius this in advance, so we're just going to go off the cuff.
Cool.
On this, but I might have told you in time, Julius. I'll let you know. But usually, what we ask every guest on this show to do is to either bring on or mention a comic that you love or are currently digging.
We did that.
Awesome.
Yeah, you did.
I've been really bad about that recently, so I'm like, shit, I probably messed it up this time too.
No, you told me. You let me know.
All right, perfect. So, Julius, kick us off. What do you got?
Okay, so I mean, it's not gonna be as elaborate and beautiful spoken as you guys did.
You wrote this 80-page thing we're talking about. Calm down.
Yeah, I'll keep within the spirit. So, I've been kind of almost fell out of love with the modern take of comics, with the exception recently of The Big Game, written by Mark Millar, and I think the artist is Pepe
Larraz.
I think.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Okay.
Pepe Larraz.
Yes, Larraz. Thank you. And that book really reinvigorated me to want that issue month in, month out. Typically with modern books, for the most part, the corporate owned. It's just, it's nothing bad or negative. It's just they're just not written, I guess, for me anymore. So I just kind of leave it alone. But this one was
is
the
that
one
one
where I
of
was
Millar's creator-owned ones at the very least?
Yeah, it's the one where
that
told me was the fact that he said it's the sequel to Wanted that came out in Top Cow back in
interesting.
And so after that, I was like, the sequel to Wanted, I'm in, because I love Wanted.
Yeah.
And not only was a sequel to Wanted, but it was a crossover of all of his own characters, his own IP characters. So Kick-Ass, Hit Girl, and Nemesis, and all the stuff that he did. So I was all in. And for the past, I think it's a 5-issue miniseries crossover event, I believe.
Okay.
It always left me satisfied and eager for the next issue, but it also left me embittered a little bit because of all the deaths that occurred of some of the characters I actually did enjoy. I did like, and I was
he killed some of your darlings. Huh?
This was kind of a culmination of what he's been doing with all these lines.
Yeah.
It's a bit, or at least a bit of a climax of the whole thing.
And he's always been known to be a little bit cynical with his stories, but with a little tad bit of hopefulness, but it works because Mark Millar is really good at doing that. And so I figured, you know what, considering the fact that
Benjamin says
they go, me too, Ben.
Today.
Me too.
Nice, Ben.
Me too. Like my coworker was like, "Hey, on a lunch break, do you wanna go to the comic shop so you can pick up issue 5, or do you want to wait until Friday again?" I was like, "No, we're getting at lunchtime. I'm not gonna wait." And so, as I mentioned, it's a little bit. I'm left a little embittered because of all the deaths that he had in this series. Yeah. I recently, I don't know why, maybe it's an age thing, but I really have fallen in love with IPAs, and the reason why is because I love the bitter taste of these IPAs.
That's hilarious.
It is,
because I hate IPAs for that.
and reading Big Game reminds me of IPAs because of how bitter tasting they are.
All right.
And
but how good they make you feel after you drink.
Nice.
Bro,
and that's how I feel about Big Game.
Good pairing.
Very nice.
Your subconscious is crazy.
It kind of is, Anthony. Kind of is.
Nice,
But yeah,
Big
Game has reminded me of it reawakened my inner fanboy of comics. Why I got into in the end of every issue, I was excited for the next one, and I was also mad that I had to wait a month for the next issue.
Right.
And Big Game has done that for me, and that's why I compared Big Game with IPAs.
You know, it's true though, that has always been the joy of the monthly issues, is that like you can't stand waiting 1 month for the next chapter. And there's a part of me that misses that too, because when I was younger, that was the point of comics. Is like that you knew it was one of your favorite comics of that moment because you couldn't stand to wait every single issue. But it's what brought
I mean, that's also
I wish I had that remote control from the Adam Sandler movie where he could fast forward.
Yeah.
That's also one of the reasons those early comics stick with you too, is because you did have to wait. Like, you were wondering, you were postulating, you were formulating these sort of possibilities.
Well, it's funny. When I was a kid, I had no idea what the schedule for comics was. Like, no one ever told. I was getting them off of spinner racks at wherever. And so I remember I got an issue of like Amazing Spider-Man 299, like right when they introduced Venom. And like he shows up for the first time at the end of that issue, and it's like to be continued, and you didn't know who the fuck this guy was. And like the grin shows on the face, and he comes out, and you're like, what the hell? And every like couple days, I just went back to see if the next one was out, and I just did this for like. And when
you're like, no, kid,
because I was like 10, I was like 8 or 9 or 10 or something. When you're that young, a month is an eternity.
Oh my god, yes.
Like, I mean, time is like a year is an era. In
now
your
a
life,
month seems like a week. It's like,
I know. You're like, what have I done with my life? I blinked and it's gone. But back then, it was I missed that feeling, but at the same, then a part of me is like, oh god, never go back to that. That was torture. I don't want to do it again. All right, Anthony, over to you, my man.
See, as a trade collector, you have to suffer for your art. I have to wait like a year in between each one.
That's right.
I dropped some hints before. I brought 2 of the Lemire and Gabriel Walta books. First one is Phantom Road. This is how do I explain it? It's kind of like another simple plot of getting from point A to point B. The two main characters kind of meet randomly. It's a big rig truck driver and a young girl, and they meet, and they're tasked with transporting this piece of alien residue from one point to another. They don't even know where they have to go yet. They can't leave the alien residue, or else they start to like feel sick. Like they need to be with it.
Oh, that's cool.
But there's all these truck stops. And for whatever reason, we don't know yet. Like I read the first volume and I still don't know. But the first the truck stops are like meeting points between dimensions.
Love it.
And then there's these like weird creatures that, sometimes attack them, sometimes are very docile. I want to find a good shot of the creatures or the aliens or whatever they are. And like between the artwork and the storytelling, like I'm just having so much fun.
Oh wow, look at that. That's cool.
And artistically, what got me really jazzed, here's a cool action spread.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So let me try to do this.
This is an image book or
image.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell on the screen, but you can see here, this is like stark black and colored.
Yep.
Yeah.
For our dimension. When they get transported, and I assumed this was digital, but apparently not. Gabriel is actually working in sepia tone ink.
Nice.
To mute it and to pull it back to show that they're in a different.
Oh, that's so good.
A different point,
the
but
color
the same.
Nice.
Genius. I love that shit.
Yeah, that's great.
And also, like, if you can see, he's been a big inspiration with me recently because he doesn't use too many heavy blacks. He does a lot of lines even when he's filling in the black.
Yeah.
And that really resonates with me. So I read this first, and then naturally I was like, all right, what else have they done together? Because I knew about the vision. The artwork was kind of different for that book. I'm much more of a fan of the Phantom Road art. And then I found this book, which is from TKO Studios.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Sentient, yes.
Gorgeous, oversized hardcover. I mean, look at the class.
Yeah.
Foil edges. I mean,
the colored edges, yeah.
And then, like, talk about, I told Julius for Vigilant Fury, I was looking at and thinking of like 80s sci-fi movies and how everything was believable, but it was completely made up.
Yeah.
And I mean, this book is
chock full of that.
Full of that. I mean, full of it.
And nice.
Even when there's not a whole lot going on, like his work is incredible. And his set, his world building, his set designs, the characterizations. Cool. I'm a huge fan, and I very much admire, what he's doing with this stuff.
It's amazing. That's cool. Yeah.
So, and this a quick summary of Sentient. Basically, it's set in the future, and it's a group of people on this ship who are headed away towards Earth to go to colonize. You don't really know where exactly, but they're trying to establish another colony. And there are separatists and there are colonists. So the separatists want to, ironically, contrary to the name, they want to stay with Earth, and they don't want to go to the new colonies. And there's a huge internal mutiny. And the ship's AI ends up becoming like the leader of the ship, but in a good way, not in a malicious way. It's
a pro AI story.
Pro in a way, yeah. Which when I read the synopsis, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, but it wasn't like, it was very much.
It was done well. In other words,
it was done well.
And AI has some beneficial uses. It's just we can't trust ourselves to only use it for those things, which is where the issue comes in. Is of course we want to take it and run with it as far as humanly possible, and that's where
we need some restraint.
Yes,
but they're working on volume 2 of Phantom Road right now, and I'm so excited. Nice. It's such a fun
I think
read.
They've solicited the individual issues. Like it's still going. So yeah.
I won't be getting them, but I'm excited for volume.
Right. The next graphic novel. I think they're already at like number, because that was like what, issues 1 through 4. I want to say
this was 1 through 5. Issue 6, I think, just went on sale today, actually, or maybe last week. And Gabriel posted that he's working on issue 7 right now. So
nice. Cool.
I can't wait. Like this is. And especially like
that sounds intriguing AF. Yeah,
there's it's not superheroes, it's humans, but there's also this air of mystery. And he also threw in like story B or the subplot is like a small town mystery with like the kind of nimwit cops who are working with the FBI. Like there's that little riff. Like it's so good. It's so good.
Noted.
Yeah.
All right. And anything to drink with those guys?
Bone
broth, I guess.
Bone broth. Stay healthy while reading these comics.
I mean, this guy looks like he could have used some broth.
That's a bone broth guy. Yeah.
Sounds awesome. All right, guys. Any last words that you want the viewers to know about Vigilant Fury or yourselves or what you've got coming?
And then tell people where they can find you and what you're up to next, for sure.
And we will put all your social media links right down below this video. I'll go patch that up, and of course a link to the campaign itself and whatnot.
Anthony, would you like to go first?
Sure, whatever. Just back the book. If you have already, thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking with us and for supporting us. If you haven't gotten it already, back it. I promise you, it's a great book. You're gonna love it. Get some cheap original art while you still can.
Yes.
Share it. I mean, spreading the word is like 90% of the battle with this stuff, so we appreciate that. Yes. And keep an eye out for more. And again, like thank you to everybody. And Gambino Studio on Instagram and Twitter, gambinostudio.com for portfolio and other stuff.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, you can find me on X at right there, Lucid Comic.
Oh, so you're saying the X?
Can,
fine.
I know. You can also find me on YouTube, Julius Freeman Comics, where I have a co-host. His name is Kyle. He's a new comic book reader. He just started collecting a year ago, so he and I co-host a show where we talk about the latest happenings in the comic book culture and the industry, as well as he has his own segment called "Is It Worth the Pickup?" where he reviews books and lets you know, hey, it's worth the pickup or it's not worth the pickup.
Nice.
Last week we had we reviewed an indie crowdfunded book called Tome of Reckoning, and the creator was bold enough to actually join us live as he gave his review and critique. And so that's what we're planning on doing. Yeah, it's kind of cultivating the culture a little bit. So you can check me out there. Again, like to add on what Anthony said, I'm grateful. We're both grateful for your support, and if you guys already backed it, let your friends know about it, because this is a solid story, and we have more in the pipeline in the near future after this project is over, and you'll see the combined efforts of both Gambino and myself with other projects. We both love working with each other. We work well off each other, and I think it's just brighter days up ahead between Gambino and myself.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And
Good
I
job.
will say for Julius's YouTube channel, I'll put a link to that down below as well. I watched his very early writer thoughts videos when he first started, before he got his co-host and whatnot. And those are actually worth checking out as well. I really enjoyed those.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I would say definitely check those out. And all right, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Wine and Comics Pairing Show. I hope all you silent viewers, there were a handful of you, and Benjamin, the non-silent viewer, thank you for chiming in now and again. I hope everyone enjoyed this. The recording will be there with all the links down below in just a couple of hours after this. And take care, guys. We will see you next time.
All right, guys. See you next
Drink
time.
something good, read something good.
Thank you, guys.